What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 24 of Beyond the Finish Line, a trail running podcast that dives deep into the stories that transcend far beyond the distance. I am your host, Joe Harden. I am a passionate trail and ultra distance runner myself. Um, whether you're an elite, a back of the pack grinder, or somewhere in between, this is your space to learn, grow, and get inspired. So let's lace up, let's lean in, let's go beyond the finish line with TJ Dailey. I'm really stoked to have him on today. I really because he's just like such a red. So what's up, TJ? Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, dude. I
Yeah,
thought a good thing very quickly. I know you do some intros, but Barkley just finished, and
right.
so I
Oh
thought
man.
that would be interesting to talk about. That we have no one even coming close to making it 5 laps this year.
So what? So Laz took it personally, didn't
Yeah,
it?
like we're never having 5 finishers again. It was cool to see Jasmine finish last year. Like that was awesome, but I mean, he added I was
Oh
talking to
man.
somebody earlier today, and I'm like, all right, imagine this. Take it more extreme because it's hard to like figure out or understand how difficult the race is. I said, imagine if 70,000 feet is 13 miles. So imagine if somebody said, run a flat 100-miler, then climb a ladder that's 13 miles off. Like that's how difficult that race is. So it's crazy to me that some of the best athletes in the world, like your John Kellys and your Tomos, can't maintain a 30-minute pace. It's that hard. It's wild.
Yeah, when you have John Kelly like Ihara struggling to, that tells you something's gone. So Laz has become unhinged on that one for
I
sure.
mean, yeah, the guy grew like John is a shoe-in. Every year he shows up, he almost finishes, and the first 2 laps took him 25 hours. It was crazy.
Yeah,
So just something that happened within the last 24 hours. So I
yeah.
thought I would bring that up as an
Oh yeah.
interesting aside.
I'm always very unproductive during the Barkley marathons because I'm just like refresh, refresh, refresh.
Trying to
God.
decode Keith Dunn's like Twitter feed, like what is he talking about? Who's he referencing? I'm the same way.
So this year it wasn't on. I got rid of Twitter, so I was like, well, I don't want to like download a whole nother thing. So I was like, I was having to like passively follow it through Amelia Boone's threads. So she was
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah. So and she wasn't going as hard in the paint with the posting this year. So like, understandably so. Like, just like, oh, when's she gonna post again? So I was like having to like dig into other people's updates, and man, I was really really wondering like after last year having 4 finishers, like if it was just going to go off the rails this year, and it sounds like it really did. So
Yeah,
it's gonna be really cool to hear some of these stories after like the dust settles from all this. I'm like really stoked
I
to
can't
hear.
wait. Man, I can't wait. I saw John Kelly on a TV show the other day, and I think they had interviewed him prior to it. But in the thumbnail, it looked like maybe post, and I was hoping for some juicy story on like how difficult it was and what was changed. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well, man. I
Yeah.
can't wait.
Well, right on, man. So TJ, man, thank you for coming on. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. It's kind of cool to get someone that I know is super busy kind of pinned down for this. So I'm really stoked. It's been cool getting to know you over the past couple of years. So having this chance to kind of, you know, unpack a little bit more of who you are and all, like, this is something I'm really looking forward to. So giving that this chance, I would like to, for you to tell all of us, anybody listening, like, let's just start off with who is like TJ Dailey.
Sure. I mean, at the highest level, I'm a father. I am a runner. I'm an event producer. I'm a passionate technologist, so that's my day job. I work in the technology sector, but yeah, really been passionate about something that I've realized lately is just I've been really passionate about making people happy, and so that's I used to produce nightlife events, believe it or not,
Okay.
as a gig in Seattle for about a decade. This is wildly different. Uh, you know, Producing nightclub events and throwing parties in that for a decade. This is a much more my speed, and I enjoy seeing people smile either way. But I love seeing people accomplish amazing things that we get to see when we produce races like this. So I'm an endurance athlete as well. Probably 14 years now of serious endurance running. I really enjoy the variety that it offers. But yeah, that's me at a high level in a nutshell. There's a lot more to unpack there when it comes to the running side of things, but that's who I would characterize myself as.
Right on, man. So like what? So the common thread here is running. So with us, I guess that's how we met. So maybe let's dig into that. Let's kind of unpack your like running journey. How'd you get into it? Go as
Yeah,
deep as you want, or just give me the rundown of that.
it's really interesting. So I started running when I was young. I started running in middle school. I was not any good. Um, we had a very, very small, I was a very small Catholic school. My eighth grade class had 12 people in it. And I was still not in the top 5 in the middle school cross country team at all times. Um, but I happened to run with an individual and a family. So there was a family that kind of created the infrastructure for this cross country team and got to experience some really cool things. And I think a part of that's where I fell in love. So like was on an AAU team that qualified for nationals. Again, no fault of my own. I was way at the back of the pack. I was giving a talk at one of the cross country. There's a local cross country team that I help coach, kids ranging from 6 years old to seniors in high school. And I was telling a story last year that at this national AAU meet, there were like 200 kids and I finished 193rd. The family that put this on is the Bruns family. One of their oldest daughter ran D1 at Colorado, and then one of my best friends who still runs with the track club. He's out of Colorado now as well. He moved out there after school, didn't run in college, but is now one of the best masters athletes in the United States. And so it's been fun to stay inspired that way. After my freshman year in high school, I kind of took a break from running. And then got back into it in 2007. I ran my first marathon, and I was one of those one and done guys, right? Let's do something hard. Let's do something different. I ran in 07 and then hung it up, and then came back in 2012 because I think I was looking for some kind of an identity. I was looking for some kind of identity because I was the one of 3 boys in my family that didn't get any attention from our father when it came to sports. My youngest brother's a great golfer. My dad is an avid golfer. And then my younger brother's a great soccer player and a great basketball player. So I got a phone call from my youngest brother in early 2012 saying he wanted to run his first marathon. At that time, I've always struggled with weight. At that time, I was probably 260 pounds. My race weight now is 165, so almost 100 pounds difference. And I know that I saw a picture from you the other day from a St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about that. So I think you and I share similar stories in that regard. But started training with him. And once we finished the Monumental Marathon that year, I wanted something more. Like, again, so I took that and then some of these races I know you're familiar with. I did Monumental, and then that same year I ran the Huff. So my first 50K.
Oh, okay, cool.
They host that anymore, but ran that up in Albion. I think Christy mentioned that on her interview as well. So I've done that. And then it was just the progression, similar to kind of what you've done, like 50K. Then I went out to Iowa and ran a Hawkeye 50K. Then I ran, and that was in February. And then in March, I ran a 50K up in Chicago, that Lakefront 50K they have up there. I think a 50 miler. And then it was a 50 miler in April out in St. Louis. And then I did my first 100 that August. So I took it from a marathon in November of 2012 to my first 100 in August of 13, which was out in South Dakota. And from that point, it's really just been exploring. So, when I started running again in 2012, I was back of the pack, 12-minute mile, 13-minute mile. And I've just been surrounded by such a cool community that's given me the opportunity to explore different things, road racing on the speed side, multi-day races, trail races, running every road in certain cities, all those things. So quite a bit there from just exploring all running has to offer.
Yeah, I love that. Man, so like how you've been running every road in you were Noblesville?
So I've done some in Noblesville. I've done all of Carmel. I've done
Oh,
all of
Carmel.
Westfield. Um, yeah, and it was a thing. So with Carmel, I have a good friend of mine. We call him the Unicorn. You've probably met him. His name's Dan Courtney. He ran Prairie last year. Um, he's got
Yeah, heard that
long
name.
hair, and Dan used to always take me on random routes in Carmel. And one day I'm like, hey, dude, this was after, God, I forget his name. He ran I'll think of it. It wasn't Pete Kostelnik, but one of the guys ran every road in San Francisco.
Oh, Ricky Gates. Yeah, yeah.
Gates, right. And so Ricky had done that. And Ricky did it the hard way, right? Like he pulled the map of the city out and mapped all the streets out. And it was using the mailman problem to figure out how to most efficiently do it. But I was running with Dan and it was like, hey man, why don't we just run every road? And I found a platform called City Strides, and the rest is history. It tracks your runs for you. It imports all your historical, so you see what you've done, and then you pull it up. You pick the roads out. You can create your route, then export it, download it to your watch, and the rest is history. And so that took us about Carmel's, I think, in the 3,000 road range, and that took us probably a year. It gets tough towards the end, right? Because you're driving like 30 minutes to knock out some roads. And we had our own watermark, right? So we wanted to make sure that, like, yeah, of course you could drive to a cul-de-sac and run a quarter mile and then get in the car and go to the next one. But we tried to keep every run, 5 to 15 miles in that range so that it felt like, we were being honest with it. Really cool way to see your city, man. Really.
Yeah. That documentary that Ricky did got me really fired up. And then I heard you talk about the city, like doing all of Carmel on Allie's podcast. I have since signed up for City Strides since I heard you talk about it. But I'm like, I just need to get out of my own way and just get it done, because I want to run every street. And I live in like a little, Lebanon's like itty bitty little town, but still, I mean, I've lived there for a very long time, and I bet I would learn something new, a lot of new things just from doing something. That'd be kind of a cool way to like understand somewhere you've been your whole life, and you probably overlook stuff you normally would overlook. And I think that'd be kind of cool. That like it'd be such a cool way to experience like your normal surroundings from like a new lens. And I guess that's got me pretty stoked too to try that. But
dude, you got
right.
My brother, we grew up in Marion, right? So my middle brother did Marion, and he's been there. He's 43. He's been there for 43 years. And he said that, I've seen things, I've been down roads I've never been down.
Nice.
It was pretty wild. And it took him like a winter, maybe like 3 months or so to do that. But then there's the fun towns, like the really tiny towns that you can knock out in a day, in like a side of a 20 miler. So it's, once you get going, once you figure out how to work the system and get the directions imported, it's so much fun because your watch it'll just beep and tell you which way to turn, and you're good to go.
Cool. Yeah. I just need to get it done. Oh, cool, man. So you mentioned something that you said a couple times is like, your running journey. I mean, I know you said you've been working with running with some fast people, and obviously like you're crushing it. Obviously, whenever we'll get into Machino and Misha in a bit, but like whenever I see you guys out, you guys are like known for being fast. Like that's what you guys do. But I want to talk about something that you just kind of said that struck me is you mentioned like in the early days of like your running journey, you were like in the back of the pack. Mm-hmm. So being that said, like, what do you think kept you coming back? Like, I mean, I know like what my why is. It's like, I won't ever podium, but I'm doing it for, a different number of reasons, but what keeps you like, what keeps pulling you back into running, and what's, it's become such a big part of your life. I guess I want to know that.
Yeah, I think, that's changed over the years. It was competitive. So when we came back in those first 6 months, part of it was health, because again, I was extremely, well, I mean, for my size, I was overweight. And so I lost 80 pounds in 6 months or something like that, just being strict. And I'm competitive with my younger brother. So that helped. And that was part of it, able to get into the 9-minute range. But I remember and then I think from that point it changed based on the community. So at that point, I went right from the marathon into the ultra world. My first 100, I broke 20 hours by a smidge, but
Oh, wow.
it's a good time for 100, but that's 12-minute pace all in, right? Including your aid station stops and things like that. But like that was it. You go run 9, 10, 11-minute pace. And I had a friend who you've met numerous times, Caleb Chambers, moved back from Pittsburgh, and Caleb was chasing sub 3. And when he made that mention to me, I recalled a conversation that I had with my brother. So I lived in Seattle until October of 2012. So I moved back. I grew up in Marion in Indiana, moved to Seattle in 2001 to work for Microsoft, and then came back in October of 2012. And I remember that my brother and I were still training after, as I was working towards these ultras, and he has family in Boston. And he was like, man, how cool would it be to run Boston? And the qualifying times were probably 15 minutes slower back then. And I was just like, dude, are you serious? Do you know how fast that is? That's like a 7-minute mile for 26 miles. Are you nuts? And I remember definitively the first time I broke 9, the first time I broke 8:30. And so a lot of it was just with Caleb, because that was his goal, to run with somebody. That was kind of my only option. And then you catch the bug, like with weight loss or anything else, and you start seeing the gains. And then the next thing fast forward a decade, and I ran 2:48 in 2023 in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
And done things that I never thought I'd be able to do. And the funny thing is this too, Joe, like as you run further and further and further, you get more and more and more context, right? Like, oh, I thought 100 miles was far. Turns out there's guys running 240. Turns out there's guys like Cameron that are running 11,000. And so as I've gotten faster, my perspective has changed. So I still stay humble in that regard. But although in my mind I'm fast, the Anthony Bruns that I just referred to earlier, he ran in the pro field at Boston in 2023 and ran a 2:23 in Boston at 40.
God.
So that's in a completely different stratosphere. But yeah, it's really been community, and then I think recently it's been my kids and health. I have a daughter that runs, and so setting a good example for her, and showing that I have a healthy relationship with running. So, I backed it off a little bit more in the last probably year, because I want, at 11, you've got to make sure you're balancing and not pushing them so hard.
Yeah. And is she still run streaking?
No, she stopped at like 860 some days.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
She came up one day from the basement. She's like, Dad, I'm done. And I'm like, cool, no problem. Yeah. So she's still chasing. She wants to do 40 at Prairie this year.
Oh man, that's gonna be so rad. So what did she get a marathon in at Prairie this year?
Yeah, she got 29. So was it
wow.
7 yards?
Nice. Yeah. I think I was just behind her. I think maybe your brother was running with her for a little bit right before she hit that mark. So, and it was just so cool. Like, I was drawing inspiration from her, because she was just like, she was putting in work to get that last lap. It was really cool to see. I didn't know what I knew now, like how far she had been that day, but that is incredible. That's amazing. So
are you doing grind, or are you doing any of the backyards this year? Do we have you?
I'm thinking about doing grind, and okay. I obviously I dropped the ball on Prairie, but it sold out so fast.
Oh, you're good. If you're good.
But I think I'm gonna have to do grind. I've had people reach out to me, like, "Are you running grind this year? I don't see your name on it." And I ran into Matt like last week, so I was just like, and he's just like such a cool dude. So I'm like, I feel like with you and like Matt and like all these race director buddies, it's like, it's not an obligation. It's like, I want to be there for my friends that have these like awesome, really, really killer events. So, and Prairie just like, dude, it's wow. Like, I mean, this would only be my third year, but just from like the first year I went to second year, like not that the vibe wasn't fantastic my first year. I mean, Prairie on Fire will always be special to me because it was my first ultra. I'm sure you've heard that story a
I
bunch of times.
remember.
Yeah. So, but this year it was just electric, dude. It was like Cam's homecoming, and like it was just so cool. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to do some. I definitely have to do grind, and
We'd love to have you at Prairie if you can make it work.
I
You're
am
like
gonna
a
do.
core part of that community. So I'd
I'm
love to
gonna. I was afraid to reach out and be like, hey, I missed the sign up, and be like, I didn't want to be that guy. But my goal would be to do 100K. I want to see the night loop, so
Yes.
that would be my core goal. I want to, and if I can get there and I still feel okay. This year, man, I was like struggling with a foot thing, and I get, I don't want to queue up any excuses for why that day didn't go the way I wanted to, but it was still awesome. Um, cool, man. Yeah, so I plan on doing grind. Sounds like
I'll be
Prairie.
out there if you are. I told Matt and Brittany I'd come out this year and hang out. And
Cool.
I think John Faust is going to run that too. So
Yeah, so John, this would be like man. It's like it's kind of like Prairie. It's just like its own little club, man. Like I still talk to people from Grind. I still talk to people from Prairie on Fire. It's like what I think there's something about a backyard that just it creates its own. It creates its own like orbit, right? It's like you still talk to
yeah,
these people after you run those things. So yeah, I'm stoked, man. It's cool you be at Grind. I'll definitely have to make sure I'm at Grind because yeah, I had people reach out to me like, I don't see your name on the signups, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to go. But yeah,
there's
rad, man.
nothing like it. Nothing like, I mean, I remember seeing you at 8 Hour last year, and like that's a totally different type of pain. And you're not having a lot of fun conversations when it's 100 degrees and you're trying to bury yourself. Where at Prairie, it's a little bit more, it's tough and it gets exponentially harder as you go forward, but it provides a little more opportunity to get to know people. So we're
Yeah,
excited. I can't believe it sold out 7 months in advance this year.
it's amazing.
We're so lucky to have that location, and just like you said, the community that was there, it was electric because of the people, and so we're looking to add some new things this year, and then of course we've got FOMO in about 2 months, so we're looking forward to that too.
Man, I'll be probably deep in the Mohican Forest the same day as FOMO, but I will be there in spirit for the FOMO because I'm really stoked to see how that goes. I committed to the Mohican 100, so I'll be somewhere struggling through that
Get that
gnarly trail.
buckle.
Yeah, man, my DNF made me want it so like I wanted it before. Now I'm just like I have a severe hunger for that buckle now, so I'm gonna do what I can to get it this time. But
Heck yeah.
well, so we touched on Prairie on Fire, and I want to know more about the formation of Prairie on Fire, like FOMO. But there's there's like a common bond here, and I want to talk about Mishinga Misha. Hopefully, I've been practicing saying
You're
that.
one of the few.
Whew. Well, I heard Allie say it, and then I was just like, "That's how you pronounce it."
That's it.
So shout out to Allie. Thanks for helping me translate that. But so I want to talk about the Mishinga Misha track club. Like, how did this form?
So back in 2016. So again, this kind of goes back to community and just luck. So it's pretty wild. So it's based out of Grant County. It's named after a place that we all grew up by. Most of us are from Marion, but we're all from that area. We found out after the fact that Christy has a relative, like her father or stepfather, one of the two, is from Marion, and she didn't even know it until after the fact because she had mentioned it to her mom. She's like, "Oh yeah, so and so's from Marion." So it's weird that that's happened too because she's such a core part of it. But back in 2015, we just decided, my brother had reached out about that first marathon, and then my other brother, my younger brother, was like, in 2013, he's like, "Well, I saw you guys finish it, and then I saw you run the 100, so I want to do it in 2013." So then both of my brothers did it in 2013. And then the next thing you know, Faust, he was at the time close to 300 pounds, and he wanted to go on a journey, and he wanted to lose weight and lost nearly 100 pounds. So he was part of it. And all of a sudden, there's 5 or 6 of us. And then from there, Anthony Bruns, who I referred to earlier, Caleb moved back in 2014. So it started to kind of snowball. And then we started doing those relay races and had some really unique experiences. I think the one that probably, there's 2 or 3 that resonate with me the most, but I think the first one was a Ragnar race in Minnesota. And when you think of Ragnar runs, a lot of it's a party, like that's the perspective that most people have. You're going out there, maybe you're cracking a few beers during your relay. We showed up with 12 guys, all from Grant County, none of them elite with the exception of Anthony. And we beat every team. We won a 200-mile race by 20 seconds, but it was totally unexpected, which made it like, that much more intense. And it was wild that we had gathered this group of people together that were from the same place it wasn't like a bunch of our college running buddies got together or high school running buddies got together. I mean, on the team, I think there were only 2 guys that ran in high school out of the 12. And so then, with people not being able to do other relays and then pulling people in. And then Caleb is a very social person in Hamilton County. And so he meets people on his runs a lot. And we just started to pull in these different groups. And, we had a Jacob Rich come in, and he was Carmel's #1 runner in the 2000s. And then all of a sudden we've got access to, he coached at Brebeuf for a decade. So we've got access to the crew. And then through, just the ultra community and meeting some people there and some of the friends we have in common. So it's just kind of snowball. And then the races, I met Christy. I was like, who is this lady? She'll appreciate this. Who's this lady liking all of my Strava posts? Like, that's so weird. And then I'm at Orange Theory Fitness one day and I see her name on the board. I'm like, yo, you're Christy. I mean, I obviously her doing that, right? And Christy is really, she's probably the centerpiece, right? She's probably the most connected in our crew. And she has like just been invaluable in introducing me to people. She helped start Carmel Runners Club and she's super connected. And so that's really how it's grown over the years is through those different methods. We've done some fun stuff and Cam's a Grant County guy too. So that was actual progression.
Yeah. I gotta ask, where's the name come from? I think I've heard you answer this before, but I'm curious what the name.
Sure. So the name, it's kind of twofold, right? So growing up, there was a kind of a local small town country club called Mishinga Country Club, and it's named after a Miami Indian chief. And that's what's so cool. So Chief Mishinga, Miami Indian chief in the area. Well, it comes full circle because Katiwi Park is Miami Indian, and it's Miami Indian for Prairie on Fire.
Oh yeah.
And so you want to talk about like total coincidence? Our club's named after a Miami Indian chief, and then 10 years later we start a race, and the park that we want to host it at is a Miami Indian word for Prairie on Fire, which is talk about the perfect name for a race at the end of the summer in Indiana.
Yeah.
In a prairie.
Was that by design, or that just happened?
It just
all
happened.
Those things. Oh, that's so cool.
Because we were like, where'd be a cool place to host this? And that's kind of the story of Prairie, right? Yeah. We're like, wow, this, I had gone down to Tennessee in 2015 and I'd run Vol State, right? Which is the multi-day race across the state of Tennessee, and met Laz, and then got interested. One of the guys that ran with us that year, Johan Steen, I think the year after or the following year after that was in like a all-out battle at Biggs with Courtney DeWalter. And so I got interested in the backyard back then, and we're like, where would be a great place to host this? And obviously we've seen now, hindsight's 2020, but Hamilton County Parks at the time weren't quite ready to let us host it at that park. So it was Prairie on Fire, named after a park that we didn't even host it at the first year. We had to go host it at Morris Park because it goes overnight. They only have one 24-hour park in the county. And because they hadn't been exposed to anything like that, or like, well, you're going to have to do it here. And if you've been up there, it's not super conducive to a backyard ultra. but yeah, so it was named after a park that we didn't even host it at. And then they finally let us move it there 2 years ago, which was your first year. And
Yeah.
then this last year, and then after the film and everything else, like we are as strong of partners as you could ever imagine at this point.
Yeah. Man, that's so cool. And they do that like that controlled burn too at Katoi, which is kind of cool.
That was so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's wild. So you kind of dove into like starting Prairie on Fire. I mean, and could you have ever imagined it would be what it is like now? Like,
I still have imposter syndrome about both of those races because I tell the story of the first one. You know, when we did the first Prairie, nobody else got it because I'd been following this race for 5 or 6 years, and everybody else is like, and so I decided last minute. I think the first one we had was in October, and I think I decided like 6 weeks prior we're going to do this. And what ended up happening was, you know, it was the ultimate scramble, right? Everything you're ordering from shirts to medals to whatever is like all from the last minute places, you know, and so it's not the best quality stuff. And then I ended up having to call the MTC team to come out and run it because I was so embarrassed. We had like 7 or 8 signups. And I'm like, guys, I'll give you all codes. I need you to sign up. Please come out here and run it for at least a couple laps so it doesn't look terrible, you know. So Angie Fraser came out and Faust and, you know, Jacob and Caleb and all the guys came out to run it. And then we finally got it to move that following year. It grew a little bit. I think next year will be year 4, right? So we went from 20 the first year. And then the first year you did it probably a little over 50. And then last year, probably between 100 and 120 after we emptied the wait list. And then this year, we had 150 with 7 months to go. So we want to let some other people in off the wait list, but we need to go out there and ensure that the campground can, you know, that it stays that same vibe, right? We don't want to turn this into, I mean, if we got to 200 ever, and we could, right? If we opened it up for 200, we could, but I want to keep that electric feeling. I don't want 500 people there. You know, it would just be too overwhelming. So, yeah, that's
I agree.
the story of Prairie. I could never imagine.
Man.
No, not my wildest dreams.
Yes, it's like it's such a special place too. Like I couldn't imagine like a better setting for like pushing your limits, and like even I like to. I mean, I've only been back like a few times. It's just like such a cool little park. But yeah, man, I'm stoked. It's been cool just being kind of young in the running world, seeing like the growth of it, and it's just rad. It's like you said, it's you've created something really, really unique. It's just it's unlike you know how backyards are, but it's just unlike any other experience. So I'm pretty stoked to see next year. Man, that's gonna be so cool.
We've been really lucky, like to have John Kuhn capturing all that and releasing the film.
God, it was amazing.
How great, right? And John Faust, they're making like that's a unique thing, cooking brisket. You know, it's and that becomes kind of one of our staples is smoked meats. You know, halfway through the race, so wild.
Yeah, I heard people say I at least want to make it to the smoked meats. So it's like that's become its own like benchmark. Is like I at least want to make it to the lap where the smoked meat comes out. It's like, oh, that's so rad.
That's it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Rad. Okay. Well, so okay. So MTC. You start Machine Misha Track Club, Prairie on Fire. Then you have like the full mow. Like you have like the full mow. So like what? I guess let's pull it back a little bit. What made you want to even be a race director to like begin with? Like what made you want to take on? I mean, I'm still early in directing my first race, and I can already tell you there's like a lot of moving pieces, and I couldn't even imagine handling something. Love it, obviously, and I just want to know what made you even get into it like in the first place. What made you decide to take these things on?
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to making people happy, and I think it goes back to your risk tolerance. You know, it's really, I think at times, and I can't wait for your 8-hour race. That's going to be so dope.
Yeah,
I think you know, it's tough to put yourself out there because full mo was kind of the same way. I just felt like, I'm fine doing that, producing all those nightlife events for all those years. I got really thick skin, so having people criticize things, or me personally, doesn't bother me um, anymore. And so, that's really what it is. Is it's like I create with the team, finding this group of individuals that is just really talented at these different aspects, right? So Corey Neuro, who you've met, right? Corey flies in from Seattle for every event. His day job is producing thousands of events a year for Microsoft. So he has this very unique ability as it relates to operationalizing things, and we just have the right people involved. And then it's really, for me, trying to like juxtapose society, meaning that everything we see nowadays, I'll give you a good example is rock and roll marathons. When I first started, rock and roll marathons were it, man. They had bands playing and you got all this cool stuff. And now they give you as little as possible. I remember going to that Arizona rock and roll marathon and you had to fill your own swag bag. Like they just put a bunch of stuff out on tables and you'd walk through and, get packets of Element or whatever it was. And then you get this shirt and it's the worst shirt of all time. It feels like it's made out of cardboard. And so it's like, let's bring some value back in. And I don't mean to point fingers, right? But like you look at these 240-mile races, and you mentioned Matt earlier, like he had gone into $2,000 for a race, or $1,000 or $1,500 for a race. I get it to a point, but it's about putting something out there that allows people to achieve those goals and creating a value and creating a community and never, I think, and remaining humble too. So, I mean, that's what's really pushed me and exposing people. One of the big things as it relates to our races, and I think you found this out, is it's a stepping stone. I think people hear ultra a lot and they get intimidated because, even 50K, you think Jackson County 50K, which is a whole different ballgame than the full mo. So we put forth the races that, like, look, you've done a marathon, you can do this. It's net downhill. It's casual. People, like, they don't understand, right? You get it. You go to an ultra, you're not like running past the aid station, grabbing your water and slamming it and then continuing on. You're chilling for a second. You're refilling your bottles. You're getting whatever. So we want to just expose people to different things and give them the opportunity to see what's out there instead of being stuck in, road running world or whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely a totally different vibe, isn't it? When the first time I ran a trail ultra prairie, it's the same thing. Like, man, people are like chilling out and like hanging out, like, and like shooting the shit. And it's like you have like road races. They're just like, running by, like snagging a cup and like keep going. And so, yeah, it's a totally different
it's
world.
Too serious. Road races are too serious. Christy will kill me for saying that because she's run like 1,000 marathons, but like, road races are way too serious at times. I have a lot of great friends that are amazing road runners, but I love the laid back vibe that, and I don't know how we've got this lucky, like to have these different people around. Like there's nobody in the trail running community in Indiana that I've run into that's like got an ego or that's not willing to help other people. Like Josh, right? Josh is one of your good friends, super cool, super accommodating. Great person. We referenced Matt earlier. There's some new race producers coming up that I haven't met yet, but they're putting some really cool things on, like the Trailblazer guys. I think they're doing Knobstone in April, which is going to be brutal for whoever does it. You want to talk about a hard race? That could be Baby Barkley right there. But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. They've got some cool stuff.
I'm aid station captaining mile 44 at Knobstone, and I cannot wait to be at that aid. I hike that a lot, and it's gnarly. I mean, I know you've been in that area, right? It's just like, it's brutal. That's going to be a race, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's what people like that aren't from here or that aren't from the Midwest, they don't get. We don't have switchbacks. It might not be a 7,000-foot climb like you're going to get on a 14er in Colorado, but guess what? It's a 40% grade because it's
Oh
straight up
yeah.
and down. And that's why nobody made it past lap 3 at Barkley because, you're on your hands and knees for 6 hours of that 12.5-hour lap.
Yeah, but you touched on Jackson County. I was like telling somebody that lives, somewhere not quite as flat about the 100K having a little over 10,000 feet of vert. I'm like, but here's the thing: there's not a single switchback at Jackson County. Like I was climbing up with my hands and knees on my last loop of that 100K.
I didn't know it. I didn't know how bad it was down there. I've been down to Brown County and I've run Gnawbone. That race will forever live in infamy as the most buried I've ever been in a race. But that's maybe a story for later. But I'd never been to Jackson County, and then Luke Tormelin works at Athletic Annex, and Jay Costello. We went down there for a altitude camp, if you will, like in November, and he took me to that park, and holy cow. I mean, I was just obliterated. I had no idea. It was me and Cam and a couple other guys, and I respect all of you that engaged. I mean, that's an awesome race and a great way to challenge yourself. Not for me.
Yeah. Speaking of which, talking about race directors, Josh basically crewed me at Jackson County. So shout out to him for the race director crewing me at his own race. He was like taking care of me because I was like, after about mile 50, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna go and do another loop of this. Like, I can't believe I have to do that one more time. So,
got it done.
got it done. Well, cool, man. And I'm curious about the full mow. Like, so Prairie on Fire, the full mow is after Prairie on Fire, right? But how many years are
May
you?
31st.
May 31st.
Yeah.
And Christy's a big part of that too. What made you guys like team up together for the full mow? Like, what made you guys decide to? First of all, the Monon is such a cool place to run too. So I think it's like a great setting. And maybe give me a little backstory on what made you guys put that together.
Yeah, I think, same, right? And as you get more into running, especially the ultra world, it's something you think about. Like, what if I ran the whole thing at once? And we had talked about it. And then one spring or summer, Christy's like, we should do a race. Or you should do a race, right? And I'm like, okay. And then you start to question yourself, right? Because there's a lot of logistical things with that trail. First of all, the pedestrian rules in Hamilton County are the most backwards rules on the planet. And so you're thinking, okay, people, if they're coming from out of town, like that's something you're worried about, right? Because it's essentially a judgment call. Like, well, if the person's in the crosswalk first, then you can't go. Yeah, well, what if the person jumps out at the last minute? So there's all the things, right? And then you have 20 different, you can't police 20 crossings. Just rolling the dice on it. She had said it that summer. We went in October and ran it, about 10 of us. And it was like, okay, I think we can do this. But it has been unique every year. And it's been the same way. It's grown slower than Prairie has, but it was the same way. First year was, I think, 20. This year we're at 125. So we'll probably sell out at 150 because we kind of look for a digestible number of people. But the crazy thing about the full mow is we've had a different course every single year, and this being year 5, because there's always some type of little thing. Year 1, we had to move the finish line in real time because they had just started that work on I-70 and closed the south, and they had started it like the week prior. So my brother and Christy's husband, Rob, were moving the finish line as runners were coming down the Monon.
Holy smokes.
So, we had that year. And then, of course, you had to deal with that construction the second year. And then year 3, they were doing construction in Carmel. So we had to reroute all these kinds of different places. And then they cleared some things up last year. And then this year we've added the Sheridan mile, right? So there's a new mile, northern mile in Sheridan. And There's some new things in the Monon world. We're looking at a full Mo South.
Ooh, okay. Oh crap! Looks like we lost TJ. Well, let's give TJ a second. There he is. Hey, what's up, man? Cool.
So we're looking at a Monon South, and because there's going to be another 100K trail on the southern part of Indiana. So we're looking forward to potentially producing something like that in 26, 27. So have, again, stepping people up,
Yeah.
From the 50K to maybe a 50 miler, 100K, something like that.
Yeah. And what I love about like the idea of like a full mow is you're kind of bringing, and this is what I like about like prairie or like grind on the grid too, is and this is something that I've noted, like, I'm like a trail runner at heart, but also like as I get deeper in like this community, I'm friends with road runners and long distance runners and faster runners. And I think that's what's cool about like something like the full mow is you're kind of bringing like both of those worlds to like a kind of like you said, like a stepping stone. Like, and I mean, that was pivotal in my, in my distance journey was something like that. So I think that's kind of cool to like provide that for somebody. That's kind of what I'm going for my thing is I kind of want to like take down some barriers and like provide like a little space for people. And I'm saying that not to promote myself, but to tell you that I'm kind of like drawing inspiration from like events like that are kind of like you're giving someone like a platform to like push their boundaries, but you're not like presenting them with like this really scary obstacle either. Like
Sure.
That's what kept me from taking the leap. Right. I was like terrified of some of these bigger races. And then like, once you get your confidence, like once you kind of like sink your teeth into something like that, it's like, oh, like you said, it's perspective. You're kind of removing that away from, what you think you can accomplish. And I think that's just really rad, I guess, is what.
Yeah. When is your race? What month is that?
October 11th.
Okay. I thought it was October. I might have to do that, Joe.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've done anything myself in the ultra world. I don't think I've run any ultra races in probably 6 years.
Right. Well, you guys did you were relaying at the 8 hour, right? Yeah.
One of the most painful experiences of all time.
The 8 hour?
Yeah, that relay, doing basically 10 by I don't know how long that loop was, 10 by 3K or something, as hard as you can. It was not fun, but I don't think it would have been any funner doing the 8 hours. My like solo either, but yeah, 8 hours fun. We had our tents right there together. That was cool.
It was like the hottest day, like the hottest day on planet too.
Todd Oliver just loves making that as hot as humanly possible. I get it.
Yeah, cool. So something special kind of happened. I'm always going to go back to prairie because it's like such a cool experience. But something special happened this year that I kind of want you to talk about, and that was the Chasing 100 documentary. I would like to think that I'm probably about 20 views on that YouTube on that documentary because it's fantastic, dude. Run us through the doc. Like John just like knocked it out of the park. Like it's amazing. So shout out to John, and then just tell me, run us through.
Well, I think
what made you guys decide to like make Chasing 100 and just.
I think we had this idea of capturing it. I think the first thing is you look at the media landscape today, and you're like, okay, well, where are races failing in that regard? And like, oh, well, let's potentially look at how we could capture this. And it was a really fun process because you kind of have to predetermine who you're going to focus on, because he can't get there and like be changing things all last minute.
Yeah.
And there were one or two people he had to shift on at the last minute, but it's like everything else. It just really worked out. We needed it. Those aren't, as a race director, those aren't really affordable things to do. It's luckily we have an MTC athlete that's sponsored by a brand, and Mount to Coast was open to producing that. We had looked at partnering on the Speed Project film, but it wasn't really enough brand centric for them to want to jump in and sponsor that. So this came up, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to do this. And there were some small requirements around Cameron, but they were almost, even though it was something that they wanted to see because he's their athlete, he was kind of a necessity, right? Because he tied it all together. Because
Yeah.
everybody, like you said earlier, it was kind of his homecoming. So you'd either heard of him or you were already friends with him. And it was like, okay, here's this guy that everybody knows. And what a perfect centerpiece for Allen and Chris Galloway. And then the other thing was like, let's focus on people that have like completely like you talked about roadrunners. That's all Chris has ever done. He's super fast. He's a super fast Masters roadrunner who runs 30 races a year. He's a race director too. He is Polar Bear.
Oh,
But
okay.
you have him, and then you have Alan Irakello, who's the president of Fisher's Run Club, and that's kind of a completely different perspective. And then of course Jeff, and then Cam, and then my daughter, and then Jake, who is kind of another central figure, working in the specialty store, kind of. So that was really, it was just all of these amazing things and amazing different perspectives coming together. And then of course, John's ability to tell a story. And we're looking forward to doing it next year. I think one of the things we looked back on after we finished, and we're not going to do it every year because it's not really viable, but one of the things that we missed out this year that just coincidentally was covering like the amazing women we have there. And so this already next year's female field is like shaping up to be super, super strong.
Nice. All right.
And so we're going to focus on your Angela Kumars of the world, right? Like she went 80 plus, and your Sarah Farney's and your Tammy Morante's, and Christie's going to be in there. And there are a few other, I don't know if Lindsay's going to be around, but there are a couple other people that are coming back, prior winners. And I'm just over the moon.
Man, you got me like really fired up. I can't wait. That's gonna be so cool. Cool, man. All right. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but before we go, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Basically, I kind of want to ask if you had, you do a lot of cool things. So I just kind of want to ask, like, like maybe like a mantra, like something, like if you had to like leave someone with like closing advice, like what do you think that would be?
Sure. Let me think. I do have to really quickly call out Gracie Bell and Jessica Nowak. Those are two other ones that are going to be at Prairie this year. I was trying to think of remember everybody's names, but they're going to be some killers. Gracie just had a baby. She was second to Cam a couple years ago, so I'm excited to have her back next year. But in terms of, I guess I have to say what I kind of tell my daughter. It's do it for you and find your path. I think a lot of times with running, you have people that are off of like Strava, off of running social media because it brings them too much anxiety or there's too much comparison there. And we've got people internal to the club that are very rigid in certain manners. They have 5, 6, 7-year running streaks, or they don't run on treadmills or whatever. And they're different approaches, but finding your own path, trails, roads, ultras, running every road, running multi-day events, running 8-hour events, doing backyards, like that's the thing I would encourage people to do instead of going and running the turkey trot once a year or running one marathon. If that isn't your thing, because as you and I know, I think you ran the Holiday Park thing the other day, like running a 5K is not fun. Like that's painful. It's just really intense for a shorter amount of time. And if you don't enjoy that, then there's definitely something out there for you. And so that's what I would encourage people to do is find your own pathway.
Man, I'll tell you, like coming from like an ultra runner's perspective, that 5 mile, I had so much fun at that Holiday Park 5 mile.
Oh, yeah?
It was hard. I mean, because I told I'm supposed to be tapering for this weekend, but man, as soon as I like got to that start line, I just like freaking sent it, man. I was just like, what a cool, like, who would have thought in the middle of Indianapolis there's like this beautiful 5 mile little course there. Like, I'm so glad that Allie put me on that course. That's really cool. I'll definitely go back to that. But
are you ready for Rhode Island?
Oh man, So coming back from Providence, we drove through some of what we'll be running. A lot of really cool, like we're going to be running by water for like 50 of these miles. So I'm really, really stoked for that. Like I'm nervous, but I mean, we got this. We're just going to have fun, man. We're going to use gas stations as aid stations, and we on meditation in the morning and all this cool stuff. So I'm super jazzed for that. But yeah, I'm ready. Be
Gas
fun.
stations, aid stations.
Yeah, just be nerd clusters and Coke for me.
That with Cameron up in Michigan. We had a couple gas station aid stations when we were finishing his run up. So, that'll be so. I can't wait to just.
Damn, we lost TJ again.
Back. I'm back.
Yeah, you're back, man.
I can't wait to check social media for your updates. Like,
yeah.
I'm so excited to see people do stuff like that. Like, that's not, you don't have a lot of friends that knock states off the list. You know what I mean? So that's super cool.
Yeah, I'm man, like you said, watching, I've been surrounding myself by these really cool people, really humble people, really hopeful people. And that's what put me on this, like meeting people like you and Cam and like all these people that like make it accessible. And it's really not that scary once you get moving. So I guess I'll say more on that if and when we complete it. But well, if you could, man, real quick, what do you I know you got like a podcast, you're dealing with like a podcast coming out. It's really great, by the way. Maybe tell everybody like kind of what you're working on and like where they can like find you. Maybe tell everybody where you can find the Daily Edge. I've really been enjoying that podcast too.
Thank you so much. There's a lot going on right now. Like you said, it's never ending with the kids sports but me in general, yes, the Daily Edge. It's our last name is spelled with an E, so it's Dailey, like daily, but add an E in there. And it's available on YouTube, Spotify, all those platforms. It's my two brothers and I just having life discussions and talking about different things and different perspectives. So we're, I think, 10 episodes in or 9 episodes in one will release tomorrow. So release every Friday at 9. So that's something we're working on. Yeah, we have some other really cool projects. The 2 races that we've talked quite a bit at length about, May 31st. So the way to remember our races are, one is the weekend after Memorial Day and one is the weekend after Labor Day. They're that every year. And you can find both of those on Ultra Sign Up. We have a new website coming out soon. Shout out to Joel Hubbard, who has been amazing. His daughter's the one that runs with Kaylin in the documentary. Okay, and that'll be, so that's at meshtc.com. We're going to have a lot of media there. We'll be launching some new things. We've got the one of the best photographers around, Timmy Howard, is going to be joining us this year at the FOMO. So we're going to have our photo galleries for both of those events this year on that site. Yeah, man, there's another little thing that my brother and I are working on. And it's a mindfulness device. It's a cross. And that's at myeternize.com. So that's something else I have going on, ETERNICE. That's a product we've been working on for the last 7 years, and it's just getting ready to launch in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, I mean, that I think does it. There's some other things going on, but like those are just traditional day job work stuff. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. And I'm at The Question, THA, the word question on most social media or something to that effect. So
you must be a fan of The Office, right?
I am a fan of The Office, but that name spawned itself like 20 years ago.
Okay.
as a joke, it was in Allen Iverson because he was the answer, and so it was a basketball thing. Like,
I thought it was. I was like, man, is that from The Office? Okay. All right. Well, man, TJ, man, thank you so much for giving me this time to get to know you better. I'll have to have you back on. Like I feel like we barely got into it. Man, you're a rad dude. Keep crushing it. I'm really looking forward to see what's coming next, man. Yeah. And thank you so much for coming on, TJ.
I appreciate it, Joe. And I hope we get you out of Prairie this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you say I'm good, then I'm there. So
let's go. All right. Sounds good.
I'm going to see that night loop.
Yeah.
All right, man. thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Do me a huge favor. Like, share, rate, review the podcast. We can't do this without you. So we need these reviews to know what we're doing, and we appreciate you all joining in. And I'll see you all next time beyond the finish line.